For 30 years, I was the family ATM. My son's college tuition, $80,000. My daughter-in-law's car, another $25,000. Grandkids' private school, every semester, over $200,000 total, while I worked double shifts as a nurse and never took a real vacation. Then I retired early and bought myself a small yacht. The day they found out, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Selfish. Irresponsible. What about us? That's when I realized they never saw me as a person, just a checkbook. What I did from that boat made them beg. Before the story begins, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. My name is Nancy. I'm 68 years old, and I spent 30 years being invisible. It didn't start that way. When Stephen was born, I promised myself I'd give him everything I never had. My husband Donald and I weren't rich, but we worked hard. I became a nurse. Donald managed a hardware store downtown, the same one his father had run before him. We saved every penny. We clipped coupons. We bought generic brands. We drove used cars until they couldn't drive anymore. Stephen was our only child. Maybe that's why we spoiled him, or maybe we just loved him too much to say no. Every parent thinks their child is special, but with Stephen, we really believed it. He was smart, funny, curious about everything. Teachers loved him. Other parents would tell us how lucky we were, and we were. We really were. When he was 17, sitting at our kitchen table with a stack of college brochures spread out in front of him, he told us he wanted to go to college out of state, a good school, one of those schools you see in movies, old brick buildings, tree-lined paths, students carrying leather bags full of important books. Expensive, very expensive. Donald and I looked at each other across that same kitchen table where we'd eaten breakfast every morning for 20 years. We didn't have to say anything. We both knew what the other was thinking. We'd make it happen. That night, after Stephen went to bed, I pulled out our savings book. We had about $12,000 saved up. It had taken us 10 years to save that much. Stephen's first-year tuition alone was $22,000. "We'll figure it out," Donald said. He squeezed my hand. I started picking up extra shifts at the hospital. Weekend doubles, holiday coverage, the shifts nobody else wanted. Thanksgiving, I was there. Christmas Eve, I was there. New Year's, I was there. I missed so many holidays that I stopped keeping track. Donald took on a second job. 3 nights a week, he worked security at a warehouse across town. He'd come home at 2 in the morning, smelling like concrete dust and exhaustion, crawl into bed next to me for 4 hours, then get up and open the hardware store at 7. We were tired, always tired, but every semester that tuition got paid. $80,000 over 4 years. I kept the receipts in a shoebox under my bed, not because I wanted Stephen to pay me back. I never expected that. I just wanted to remember what it cost, what we gave up, the vacations we didn't take, the house repairs we postponed, the new car we never bought. Donald never complained, not once. He'd kiss my forehead before I left for the night shift and say, "He's worth it, Nancy. Our boy's going to do great things." And I believed him. I really did. Stephen graduated with honors. We drove 8 hours to watch him walk across that stage in his cap and gown. I cried the whole ceremony, not quiet tears, big, ugly, happy tears. Donald held my hand so tight I thought my fingers would break. We were so proud, so impossibly proud. That was the last time I remember feeling like we mattered to him. After college, Stephen moved to the city. He got a job at a marketing firm. Entry level, but it was good company. Room to grow, he said. We were happy for him. Of course we were. We didn't see him much after that. He'd call every few weeks, short calls, surface level. Yeah, Mom, work's good, busy, lots of meetings. How's Dad? We'd talk for maybe 10 minutes, then he'd say he had to go. Always had to go. He's building his career. Donald would say after we hung up, "That's important. He'll come around." But he didn't. Months would go by. Then it became a year, then 2 years. We'd invite him for Thanksgiving. He was busy. Christmas? Busy. His birthday? Busy. Then 3 years after graduation, he called on a Tuesday night. I remember because Tuesdays were my short shift days, and I was actually home for dinner. "Mom, hey, I have news." He sounded excited. Really excited. The most excited I'd heard him in years. "I'm engaged." My heart jumped. My son was getting married. My baby boy. "Her name's Marilyn," he said. "You're going to love her. She's amazing, smart, beautiful, driven. She works in finance. We met at a company networking event." I asked when we could meet her. There was a pause. Just a brief one, but I noticed. "Soon," he said. "We're both pretty swamped right now, but soon. I'll send you a photo." He sent a photo that night. Marilyn was beautiful. Dark hair, perfect smile, expensive-looking clothes. She was standing next to Stephen at what looked like a fancy restaurant. They both looked successful, polished, like they belonged to a world I'd never been part of. "She's lovely," I texted back. 6 months went by. We still hadn't met her. Then Stephen called again. "We're getting married in 4 months," he said. "Small wedding, just close family and friends. About 80 people. 80 people felt like a lot for a small wedding. But what did I know? "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said. "Your father and I are so happy for you." "Thanks, Mom. So listen, I wanted to talk to you about something." My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. The "I need something" tone. "Marilyn's parents," he said carefully. "They're going through some financial difficulties right now. Her dad's business hasn't been doing well, so they can't really contribute to the wedding." "I see. And Marilyn and we've been saving. But weddings are expensive. Like really expensive. Way more than we thought." I waited. "Could you and Dad maybe help out? Just with the venue? It's the biggest expense." "The venue?" I asked how much. $8,000, he said. "I know it's a lot, but it's actually a really good deal for the location. It's this beautiful place upstate, right on a lake. Marilyn fell in love with it." Donald and I talked about it that night. We had some savings left, not much. We'd been slowly rebuilding after paying for Stephen's college. We'd been planning to finally fix the roof. It had been leaking for 2 years, and every time it rained, I had to put buckets in the hallway. But Stephen was getting married, our only son. "Let's do it," Donald said. "The roof can wait another year." We paid for the venue. Then, 2 weeks later, Stephen called again. "Hey, so the caterer needs a deposit. It's $3,000. Can you cover it? We'll pay you back after the wedding, I promise." We covered it. Then the photographer. $2,000. Then the flowers. $1,500. Then Marilyn's dress. She'd found the perfect dress, Stephen said, but it was more expensive than they'd budgeted. Just $2,000 more. Could we help? We helped. By the time the wedding day came, we'd spent $22,000. Exactly the same amount as 1 year of Stephen's college tuition. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wore a dress I'd had for 10 years. Navy blue, simple. I'd planned to buy something new, but we didn't have the money anymore. Donald rented his suit. The cheapest option. We didn't care. This wasn't about us. This was for Stephen. The wedding was beautiful. I'll give them that. The venue really was stunning. Right on the lake, sunset views, white chairs lined up in perfect rows. Marilyn looked like a princess. Stephen looked handsome in his tuxedo. I cried during the ceremony, but not the same kind of tears as his graduation. These were different, quieter, heavier. At the reception, Marilyn's father gave a speech. He thanked everyone for coming. He thanked the caterers for the beautiful meal. He thanked the DJ for the music. He thanked the florist. He thanked the photographer. He didn't mention us once. Stephen gave a speech too. He thanked Marilyn for saying yes. He thanked his groomsmen. He made a joke about his best man. He thanked Marilyn's parents for raising such an incredible woman. He didn't mention us either. I told myself it didn't matter. It was their day. They were overwhelmed. They probably just forgot. But when I brought it up later, gently, carefully, after most of the guests had left and Stephen was loosening his tie, he just laughed. "Mom, come on. Everyone knows you guys helped. You don't need a public shout-out for being parents." Being parents. Like that's all it was. Like $22,000 was just what parents do. Donald squeezed my shoulder. "Let it go," he whispered. So I did. 2 years later, Donald died. Heart attack. Sudden. Massive. He was at the store, helping a customer load lumber into their truck, and he just collapsed. The customer called 911. They tried to revive him. The paramedics tried. The ER doctors tried. He was gone before I even got to the hospital. Stephen came to the funeral. He flew in the morning of and flew back out the next day. Marilyn didn't come. She was 6 months pregnant and her doctor didn't want her traveling. I understood. Of course I understood. At the funeral, Stephen stood next to me while people offered their condolences. He shook hands. He accepted hugs. He thanked people for coming. But he felt distant, like he was going through motions. After everyone left and it was just the two of us standing in the empty funeral home, he turned to me. "You gonna be okay, Mom?" "I don't know," I said honestly. He nodded, checked his watch. "My flight's at 6. I should probably head to the airport." "Already?" "Yeah, I have meetings tomorrow, important ones. I can't really miss them." He hugged me, quick, stiff. "Call me if you need anything," he said. Then he left. I stood there in that empty funeral home, surrounded by flowers people had sent, and I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. I kept working. What else was I going to do? The house felt too big without Donald, too quiet. Every room had memories. Him reading the newspaper at the kitchen table, him watching TV in his recliner, him humming while he worked in the garage. I couldn't be there. So I worked, double shifts, triple shifts sometimes. I volunteered for every holiday, every weekend, every overnight. My coworkers thought I was dedicated. Really, I was just running. 3 months after the funeral, Stephen called. "Mom, we had the baby." A girl, they named her Emma. He sent photos. She was beautiful, tiny, perfect. "When can I meet her?" I asked. "Soon. We're figuring out the whole new parent thing. It's crazy. Nobody tells you how hard it is." "I remember," I said quietly. "Right. Of course you do. Anyway, I'll call you later. Emma's crying." He hung up. 4 months went by. I still hadn't met my granddaughter. Then Stephen called again. That tone was back. The "I need something" tone. "Mom, we need to talk. Daycare in the city is insane, like criminally expensive, $2,000 a month. We can't afford it right now, not with Marilyn on maternity leave." I waited. "Could you help us out?" Just until I get my promotion. Maybe a year, tops. Then we'll be fine. $2,000 a month. I was 62 years old. I should have been thinking about retirement. Instead, I was about to take on another massive expense. But what was I supposed to say? It was my granddaughter. My only grandchild. Okay, I said. I started sending them $2,000 every single month. I had to pick up even more shifts to cover it. I was working 50, sometimes 60 hours a week. My body was tired. My feet hurt constantly, my back ached. But Emma needed daycare. 1 year became 2 years. 2 years became 3 years. Just a few more months, Mom, Stephen would say. My promotion's coming through soon. It never did. Or if it did, they never told me. The money kept going out. $2,000. Every month. Like clockwork. Then Marilyn decided she wanted to go back to school. She wanted an MBA. It would help her career, Stephen said. Help them financially in the long run. How much? I asked. $15,000 total, over 2 years. We'll make monthly payments, but we're short about $7,000 for the first year. Could you cover it? I covered it. Then their car broke down. It was old, Stephen said, not worth fixing. They needed a reliable car. They had Emma to think about. Safety was important. How much do you need? We found a good used one, $25,000. We can put down $15,000, but I'll send you the rest. $10,000. Wired the next day. Then they wanted to move to a bigger apartment. They needed more space now that Emma was getting older. The deposit was $5,000. First and last month's rent. Could I help? I helped. I stopped looking at my bank account after a while. It was too depressing. I knew what was happening. I was bleeding money. My retirement fund was shrinking. My savings were disappearing. But I couldn't stop. They were my family. My son, my granddaughter. What else mattered? I was 65 years old when I finally sat down and did the math. Over $200,000 gone. College, $80,000. Wedding, $22,000. Daycare, $72,000 over 3 years. Marilyn's MBA, $7,000. Car, $10,000. Apartment deposit, $5,000. Miscellaneous, $6,000. $202,000. And I was still working 50-hour weeks, still picking up every extra shift, still eating leftovers for dinner most nights, still driving a car with 187,000 miles on it that made a weird noise every time I turned left. But Stephen and Marilyn? I saw their social media, vacations to Mexico, expensive restaurants every weekend, new furniture, designer clothes for Emma. They looked happy, successful, like they'd earned it all themselves. I never said anything. What kind of mother asks for gratitude? What kind of grandmother keeps score? Then, last year, something shifted. I got a letter in the mail. It was from my financial advisor, a man named Greg that Donald and I had met with once, maybe 15 years ago. He was checking in with former clients, seeing how they were doing, offering a free consultation. I almost threw it away. But something made me call. Greg remembered me, remembered Donald. He offered his condolences when I told him Donald had passed. How can I help you, Nancy? I didn't know where to start, so I just started talking. I told him everything. The college fund, the wedding, the monthly payments, the car, the apartment, all of it. When I finished, there was a long silence on the phone. Nancy, he said carefully, do you know how much you've given them? A lot, I said. More than a lot. And I'm guessing they don't know you're still working full-time at 65 just to keep this up. They know I work. Do they know you can't afford to retire? I didn't answer. Nancy, what are you doing for yourself? I didn't have an answer for that either. Greg suggested I come in. We'd look at my finances together, see what was left, make a plan. I went in the following week. Greg pulled up all my accounts, ran the numbers. His face got more and more concerned as he went through everything. Nancy, he said finally, your retirement account has $17,000 in it. $17,000, that was it. That's what 30 years of nursing had left me with. At this rate, Greg said quietly, if you keep sending them money, you'll be working until you're 75, maybe longer. 75. I'd be 75 years old, still picking up night shifts, still on my feet for 12 hours at a time. You need to stop, Greg said, or at least slow down significantly. You need to have a conversation with your son. I nodded, but I didn't believe I'd actually do it. 2 months went by. I kept sending the money, kept working the shifts, kept pretending everything was fine. Then Stephen called. It was late, almost 10 at night. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour shift. My feet were killing me. I hadn't eaten dinner. I just wanted to take off my shoes and collapse on the couch. Mom, hey, quick question. Not even a, how are you? Just straight into it. Marilyn and I are thinking about buying a house. We found one we love. It's perfect. Great neighborhood, good schools for Emma. We're so excited. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Yeah, so here's the thing. We're short on the down payment. We need 20% and we're about $40,000 short. Could you loan it to us? We'll pay you back. Obviously, this is an investment property, really. It's going to appreciate. We'll make money on this. $40,000. I looked down at my swollen feet, at my hands, rough and dry from constant hand washing at work, at the stack of bills on my coffee table I'd been avoiding. Stephen, I said slowly, I don't have $40,000. There was a pause. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, Mom. You've been working forever. You've got to have savings. I don't. What about your retirement account? I've been using it to help you. Another pause. Longer this time. Well, he said, and his voice had an edge now. Maybe you should have saved better. Maybe you should have been more responsible with your money. Something inside me cracked. Something I'd been holding together with duct tape and denial for 30 years. Stephen, I said, my voice shaking, I've given you everything. And I appreciate it, Mom, really. But that's what parents do. You chose to help us. Nobody forced you. Nobody forced me. I hung up. My hands were trembling. My heart was racing. I sat there in the dark living room, staring at nothing. My phone rang, Stephen calling back. I didn't answer. It rang again, again, again. I turned it off. The next morning, I went back to Greg's office without calling first. His secretary looked surprised to see me, but Greg waved me in. Nancy, everything okay? I want to retire, I said. He pulled up my accounts, ran the numbers again, looked at me seriously. You can, he said, barely, if you're extremely careful with spending, and if you stop all financial support to your son immediately. I want to do something for myself, I said, something I've always wanted. Greg raised an eyebrow. Like what? I'd always wanted to sail. It was something Donald and I used to talk about when we were young. We'd see boats at the marina and dream about buying one someday, sailing down the coast, just the two of us, freedom. We never did it. There was always something more important. Stephen's school fees, the mortgage, car repairs, life. I want to buy a boat, I said. Greg didn't laugh, didn't tell me I was being reckless. He just nodded slowly. Let's make it happen. We spent the next week looking at boats online, used ones within my budget. I found one I liked, a 32-foot sailboat, 20 years old but well-maintained. The owner was an older man who'd gotten too sick to sail anymore. He was asking $55,000, but Greg helped me negotiate down to $50,000. It was most of what I had left, but it was mine, for me, not for anyone else. I signed the papers on a Friday afternoon. The owner, his name was Bill, showed me around the boat, showed me how everything worked. He had tears in his eyes when he handed me the keys. "Take care of her," he said. "She's a good boat. She'll take care of you." I named her Second Wind. I didn't tell Stephen, didn't tell anyone except Greg. I just moved my things from the house, not much, just clothes and a few photos, and moved onto the boat. The marina wasn't far from where I'd lived, maybe 20 minutes, but it felt like a different world. I spent the first week just learning how to live in such a small space, how to dock properly, how to cook in a galley kitchen that was barely bigger than a closet, how to sleep with the gentle rocking of water beneath me. It was perfect. The other people at the marina were kind. They didn't ask too many questions. They just welcomed me, showed me the ropes, invited me to their Friday night gatherings where everyone brought food and sat on their decks and talked about sailing. I felt more at home in that first week than I had in years. Then Stephen found out. I was sitting on the deck watching the sunset paint the sky, orange and pink, when my phone rang. I'd turned it back on a few days earlier. There were 47 missed calls, 32 voicemails. I'd deleted them all without listening. But this time, I answered. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" "Hello, Stephen. Marilyn's friend's sister saw you at the marina on a boat. She said you bought it. She sent Marilyn a picture. Is that true?" "Yes." Silence. Then, "Are you out of your mind? You said you didn't have money." "I didn't have money to give you," I said calmly. "I had enough to take care of myself." "You bought a boat, Mom. A boat. Do you know how selfish that is? Do you know how much we needed that down payment?" Selfish. There it was, the word I'd been waiting for. "Stephen," I said quietly, "I've spent 30 years giving you everything I had. I'm done." "Done? What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm retiring. I'm living on this boat, and I'm not sending you any more money." There was a long silence. I could hear Marilyn in the background. "Let me talk to her. Give me the phone." The phone shifted. I heard Stephen say something, then Marilyn's voice came through sharp and tight. "Nancy, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is completely unacceptable. We have a child. We have bills. We have responsibilities. You can't just abandon us like this." "Abandon? I didn't abandon you," I said. "I stopped being your ATM." That's not fair. We've never treated you like an ATM. We appreciate everything you've done." "Do you?" I interrupted. "When was the last time you said thank you? When was the last time you asked how I was doing? When was the last time you visited me? Not asked for money, visited me." Silence. "I worked myself to exhaustion for 30 years, I said, my voice shaking now. "I gave you everything. College, wedding, daycare, car, rent. I gave you $200,000, and you know what you gave me? Nothing. Not a thank you. Not a visit. Not even an acknowledgement that I was sacrificing anything. We didn't ask you to sacrifice. Yes, you did. Every time you called needing money. Every time you said, just this once or just until. Every time you made me feel guilty for even thinking about saying no. Marilyn's voice got colder. So that's it? You're just cutting us off? What about Emma? What about your granddaughter? What about her? I haven't seen her in over a year. You never bring her to visit. You never even video call. The only time I hear from you is when you need money. Because we're busy. Everyone's busy, Marilyn. That's not an excuse. I can't believe this, she said. I can't believe you're being so cruel. After everything we've been through. I'm hanging up now, I said. Don't call me unless you're ready to have a real conversation. One where you actually care about me as a person, not a checkbook. I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But underneath the anxiety, underneath the guilt that was already trying to creep in, I felt something else. Relief. They didn't call back that night, or the next day, or the next week. I sailed. I didn't go far at first, just up and down the coast, staying close to familiar waters. I docked at small towns I'd never visited, ate at diners, walked on beaches, met people who didn't know anything about me except that I was a woman on a boat. It was liberating. 2 weeks after I'd hung up on them, I docked in a quiet harbor about 50 miles north. There was a small community of live-aboards there, people who lived on their boats full time. That evening, I met a woman named Claire. She was 72, living on a beautiful wooden sailboat with her husband Tom. They'd been sailing together for 10 years. Retired and ran away to sea. Claire laughed when I asked how they'd ended up here. Best decision we ever made. We sat on their deck, drinking wine, watching the stars come out. Our kids thought we were insane, Tom said. They staged an intervention, actually, tried to tell us we were having some kind of crisis. What did you tell them? I asked. That we were finally having a life, Claire said. You know what's funny? Now they visit us, on our terms. They come here, stay on the boat, and actually spend time with us. No distractions, no excuses, just family. I thought about that for a long time after I went back to my boat that night. 3 weeks after I'd hung up on Stephen, I was making coffee in my galley when I heard footsteps on the dock. Heavy footsteps, multiple people. I looked out and my heart dropped. Stephen was walking down the dock toward my boat. Marilyn was with him, and holding Stephen's hand was Emma. I hadn't seen my granddaughter in over a year. She was bigger now, taller. Her hair was longer. She looked like Stephen did when he was that age. They stopped at the edge of my boat. Stephen looked uncomfortable. Marilyn looked furious. Emma looked confused. Mom, Stephen said, can we talk? I didn't invite them on board. I just stood there holding my coffee mug, waiting. This is ridiculous, Marilyn said before Stephen could continue. You're living on a boat like some kind of... Marilyn, Stephen said quietly, his jaw tight. I said, let me handle this. She crossed her arms but stayed quiet. Her face was red. Stephen looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. His eyes moved over my face, taking in the lines and the gray hair and the exhaustion that I'd been carrying. Mom, he said again, I don't understand. Why didn't you just tell us you were struggling? Why didn't you say you needed to stop helping us? I did tell you, I said. You didn't listen. When? When did you tell us? Every time I said I was tired. Every time I mentioned working holidays. Every time I said I couldn't afford something for myself. You didn't hear me because you didn't want to. Because if you heard me, you'd have to. Acknowledge that I was a person with needs, not just a resource you could drain. Stephen looked away, his hands clenched into fists. We needed your help, Marilyn said, her voice sharp. That's what family does. They help each other. No, I said, and my voice was steady now. Family goes both ways. I gave. You took. That's not family. That's exploitation. Marilyn's face went bright red. How dare you? We never exploited you. Everything you gave us, you gave willingly. Because you made me feel like I didn't have a choice. That's not true. Yes, it is. Every phone call, every request, you always framed it as temporary. Just until. Just this once. Just to get through this rough patch. But it was never temporary. It was constant, endless. And every time I even hesitated, you'd bring up Emma. What about Emma? Don't you care about your granddaughter? Marilyn opened her mouth to argue, but Stephen put his hand on her arm. She's right, he said quietly. Marilyn turned to him. What? She's right, Stephen said again, louder this time. He looked at me. We did do that. We did make you feel like you couldn't say no. I did that. Emma tugged on Stephen's hand. Daddy, I'm tired. Can we go? I looked at her. My granddaughter. 6 years old. Beautiful. I barely knew her, and that wasn't my fault. Stephen, I said, my voice breaking slightly, I love you. I always will. But I don't owe you my life. I don't owe you my retirement. I don't owe you every dollar I've ever saved. I never said you did. You didn't have to say it. You just expected it. And I gave it. Because that's what I thought love was. Sacrifice. Giving until there was nothing left. But you know what I realized? That's not love. That's martyrdom. And martyrs don't have healthy relationships. His jaw tightened. So what do you want from us? Respect, I said simply. I want you to respect me as a person, not as a bank, not as a free babysitter or a safety net, as a person with my own life, my own dreams, my own needs. And if we can't do that? Marilyn said coldly. I looked at her, really looked at her. She was young, pretty, successful, and she had no idea what sacrifice actually meant. Then I'll be fine, I said quietly. I've been alone before. It's not the worst thing in the world. Emma tugged on Stephen's hand again. Daddy, please, I want to go home. Stephen picked her up. He looked at me one more time. Is that really what you think? That we only care about your money? I think, I said carefully, that you've gotten very comfortable with me always being there to catch you, and maybe you need to learn how to catch yourselves. They left without another word. I watched them walk back down the dock, watch Stephen put Emma in her car seat, watch Marilyn get in the passenger side, her face still red with anger, watch them drive away. And then I went back inside my boat, sat down on the small couch, and cried. Not because I regretted what I said, but because it hurt. Because part of me wanted to run after them and say I was sorry, take it all back, send them the money. But I didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, kept wondering if I'd been too harsh, too cruel. What kind of mother cuts off her only son? But when the sun came up the next morning and I made my coffee and sat on the deck watching the water, I realized something. I'd slept better in the last month on this boat than I had in years. 2 months went by. I kept sailing. I started going farther, down the coast exploring new harbors. I met more sailors, made friends, real friends who knew me as Nancy, not as Stephen's mom or Emma's grandmother. One afternoon, I was in a harbor about 100 miles south when my phone buzzed, a text from Stephen. "Can we try again?" I stared at it for a long time. My finger hovered over the delete button. Then I typed back, "On my terms." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Okay. We met for coffee 2 weeks later, just the 2 of us. No Marilyn, no Emma. Stephen drove to where I was docked, and we went to a small cafe near the marina. He looked tired, older somehow. We sat across from each other in silence for a while. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what specifically?" I asked. He took a deep breath. "For taking you for granted. For not seeing how much you were giving up. For treating you like a resource instead of a person, my mom." I didn't say anything. I just waited. "After you left, after that day at the marina, Marilyn and I got into a huge fight. She wanted to call you every day, demand that you help us with the house. But He paused, stirring his coffee even though he hadn't added anything to it. "I started thinking about what you said, about how we only called when we needed something. And you were right. I went through my phone, counted how many times I'd called you in the last 5 years. 43 times. You know how many of those calls were just to check in, to see how you were doing? 0, not 1. He looked up at me and his eyes were red. Every single call was asking for something. Money, mostly. Sometimes advice on something. But even that was just using you. I never asked how you were. I never asked if you were lonely after Dad died. I never asked if you needed anything. I just took." A tear rolled down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly. "I didn't see it," he said. "I swear I didn't see it. In my head, I thought we had a normal relationship. I thought we talked regularly, but we didn't. We didn't have a relationship at all. I had a credit card that occasionally asked me how work was going." "Stephen." "No, let me finish. Please." He took a shaky breath. "Dad would be ashamed of me. I know he would. He worked himself to death to give me opportunities, and I didn't even notice. You worked yourself to exhaustion, and I told you that you should have. Saved better. What kind of son does that?" "A son who didn't know better," I said quietly. "That's not an excuse." "No, it's not, but it's the truth." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside the cafe window, I could see my boat bobbing gently in the water. "I can't pay you back," Stephen said finally. "The $200,000, I can't pay it back. We've spent it. The car, the apartment, Marilyn's school, it's gone." "I don't want you to pay me back." He looked surprised. "You don't?" "No, that money is gone. It's in the past. I can't get it back, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life resenting you for it." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to stop treating me like I'm obligated to fund your life. I want you to call me sometimes just to talk. I want you to bring Emma to visit, not because you need something, but because you want to spend time with me. I want a real relationship with my son." Stephen nodded slowly. "I can do that. I want to do that." "Can you? Because I meant what I said. I'm not sending money anymore, not for anything. If you can't afford something, that's between you and Marilyn." "I understand." "Do you? Because the first time something comes up, and something will come up, you're going to want to call me. and I need you to not do that." "I won't," he said. "We'll figure it out ourselves." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But 30 years of patterns don't break in one conversation. "I guess we'll see," I said. Over the next few months, something strange happened. Stephen actually kept his word. He called me once a week just to talk about work, about Emma, about nothing important. Just conversation. The calls were awkward at first. We didn't really know how to talk to each other without the transaction hanging between us. But slowly, it got easier. He told me about a project at work that was stressing him out. I told him about a storm I'd sailed through and how terrified I'd been. He laughed, actually laughed, and said, "You're braver than I am, Mom." It was a small thing, but it meant everything. Marilyn took longer. She didn't call, didn't text. I knew she was still angry, still thought I was being selfish and cruel. Then one day, about 4 months after our confrontation, I got a text from her. "Can I come visit? Just me." I was surprised, but I texted back, "Yes." She showed up 2 days later. I was on the deck when she arrived, and I watched her walk down the dock. She was carrying a bag. Looked like she'd brought food. "Hi," she said when she reached the boat. "Hi." Awkward silence. "Can I come aboard?" I nodded and she climbed onto the boat carefully. She looked around at the small deck, the even smaller cabin below, the simplicity of everything. "It's nice," she said. "Smaller than I expected." "It's enough for me." More silence. Then she held out the bag. "I brought lunch. I wasn't sure if you'd eaten." "I haven't. Thank you." We sat on the deck, eating sandwiches she'd made. They were good, turkey and avocado on sourdough. We didn't talk much at first, just ate and watched the water. Finally, she spoke. "I owe you an apology." I looked at her. "Stephen told me about your conversation, about what you said, about how we treated you." She paused. "I didn't want to hear it at first. I was so angry. I thought you were abandoning us, abandoning Emma. But then I started thinking about my own mother." "What about her?" "She died when I was 23. Cancer. Before she died, she told me something I didn't understand at the time. She said, 'Don't let people erase you, not even the people you love.' I didn't know what she meant, but now I think I do." She looked at me, and her eyes were wet. "We were erasing you. We weren't doing it on purpose, but we were. Every time we called asking for money, every time we made you feel guilty for wanting to live your own life, we were erasing you. And I'm sorry. I'm really, genuinely sorry." I felt my own eyes fill with tears. "My mother gave everything to my siblings and me," Marilyn continued. "She worked 3 jobs. She never bought herself anything nice. She never went on vacation. And when she got sick, when she was dying, you know what she said? She said she wished she'd lived more. She wished she'd been selfish sometimes." "Your mother wasn't selfish for wanting to live," I said quietly. "No, and neither are you." We sat there for a long time after that, just being quiet together. When Marilyn left, she hugged me. A real hug. Not the stiff, obligatory kind, the kind that meant something. "Can I bring Emma next time?" she asked. "I'd like that." 2 weeks later, they came back. Stephen, Marilyn, and Emma. Emma was shy at first, hiding behind Stephen's legs, peeking out at me like I was a stranger, which I suppose I was. "Emma," I said gently, "would you like to see my boat?" She nodded, still shy. I showed her everything. The tiny galley where I cooked, the even tinier bathroom, the bed that folded down from the wall, the storage compartments hidden everywhere. "It's like a dollhouse," she said, her eyes wide. "It kind of is." Then I took her up on deck and showed her the wheel, let her pretend to steer. She giggled, a sound I'd never heard before. My granddaughter's laugh. Stephen and Marilyn watched from the dock, and when I looked at them, they were both smiling. Real smiles. Before they left that day, Emma hugged me, wrapped her little arms around my legs and squeezed tight. "Can I come back, Grandma?" "Anytime you want, sweetheart." Over the next year, they visited regularly. Not every week. They had their own lives, and I had mine. But maybe once a month, sometimes more. We fell into a rhythm, a new rhythm, one that felt healthier. Stephen and Marilyn figured out their finances on their own. It wasn't easy for them. They had to move to a cheaper apartment. Marilyn put her MBA on hold. They bought a used car instead of a new one. But they did it. They figured it out, and you know what? They seemed happier, less stressed, like the weight of always needing help had been lifted. Stephen told me once during one of our phone calls, "It's weird. I thought not having your financial support would make everything harder. But actually, it made us grow up. We had to budget, had to make hard choices, had to be responsible. We should have been doing that all along." "Better late than never," I said. "Yeah, better late than never." I still live on the boat. I still sail. I've gone farther now, down to Florida, through the Keys, even to the Bahamas once. I've met people from all over the world. I've seen sunsets that took my breath away. I've felt storms that terrified me and calm seas that healed something deep inside. I'm 68 years old, and I'm finally living. Sometimes, when I'm out on the water, I talk to Donald. I tell him about Emma, about Stephen growing up finally, about this life I've built. I imagine he's proud of me. I imagine him sitting next to me, his hand covering mine on the wheel, saying, "You did good, Nancy. You really did." And I believe him. This boat, this life, it's not about revenge. It's not about punishing Stephen or proving a point to anyone. It's about remembering that I'm a person, not just a mother, not just a grandmother, not just a wallet or a safety net or a resource, a person with dreams, with needs, with a life that matters. For 30 years, I thought love meant sacrifice, giving everything, putting everyone else first, always. And maybe love does mean sacrifice sometimes. Maybe it means putting others first sometimes, but not always, not at the cost of yourself. Because here's what I've learned. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't love others well if you don't love yourself. You can't be there for your family if you've erased yourself completely. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Saying no isn't cruel, it's honest. Taking care of yourself isn't abandonment, it's survival. I wish I'd learned these things earlier. I wish I'd bought this boat 20 years ago. I wish Donald and I had sailed together, like we'd always dreamed. But I can't change the past. I can only live in the present. And right now, in this present moment, sitting on the deck of my boat with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over the water, I'm happy. Really, truly happy. Emma's coming to visit this weekend. She wants to learn how to tie knots. Stephen's teaching her about sailing, and she's fascinated. "Maybe when I'm older, I can get a boat too," she said last time she was here. "Maybe you can," I told her. "Or maybe you'll find your own dream. Whatever it is, make sure it's yours. Not someone else's dream for you. Yours." She nodded, not fully understanding yet, but someday she will. And maybe, hopefully, she'll learn it sooner than I did. The other day, Stephen asked me if I had any regrets. I thought about it for a long time before answering. I regret not doing this sooner, I said finally, but I don't regret doing it now, and I don't regret any of the love I gave you. I just regret that it took me so long to learn how to love myself too. He hugged me after that, held on tight. I'm proud of you, Mom, he whispered. And that made it all worth it. I'm Nancy. I'm 68 years old. I live on a sailboat. I spent 30 years being invisible, but not anymore. Now I'm finally, fully visible to everyone else, and most importantly, to myself. What would you do if this happened to you? Tell me in the comments. I always read them. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more true life stories like mine.